Hi everybody, my name is Maggie Raymond and I am here to talk to you guys a bit about my honors research experience. So to start off about myself, I graduated in last December of 2021 with a BA in chemistry and a minor in math. I also completed the pre-med track, but I am no longer planning on attending medical school. I've actually recently applied to graduate school, but I will touch a bit more on that later. I'm currently working as a pharmacy technician for Caramount Health and I'm awaiting the next step in my career. Some of you guys may recognize me as I did serve as the UHP president the semester before I graduated, and I was on the executive board for 2 years prior to that. My involvement in the honors program was a highlight of my university experience, and I am definitely very grateful for all the opportunities that I received. One of the main things that I would say was very important is to apply yourself within the honors community in order to actually get the most out of it. Your experience is based on the effort that you put into it. So along with serving on the executive board, I participated in honor study abroad with the City as Text International in 2020, which I highly recommend to anyone considering spreading their education abroad. I also completed my senior capstone within the honors program instead of doing disciplinary honors. What stood out to me was the interdisciplinary aspect that came with the honors capstone. I had started university as a psychology major and had switched to chemistry when I found myself more fascinated by my chemistry courses than anything else. It was getting close to the time to apply to medical school, and I was getting less and less sure of what I wanted to do with my career and further education. So completing my capstone within the honors program really allowed me to explore outside of just chemistry and focus on subjects that I was most interested in. My motivation to engage in honors research was my own curiosity to answer questions outside of the normal scope of scientific practice, and having the platform to do just that. I remember when I first read the description for the honors capstone, and it was very vague in how you could choose to represent your ideas. You had to have a literature review and key elements such as that, but the method by which you wanted to express your idea was completely up to you. And I truly wanted to take this as an opportunity to study topics that I had always wanted to, but also combine my passions and curiosity within scientific research. And so I had this idea to combine chemistry and art somehow, but I had no idea how I was going to go about doing so. I had mentioned my idea to Dr. Adno, and she was very encouraging of continuing in this direction as long as I had the proper support to help guide me with my project. I found it crucial to establish your committee early on, even before you fully develop the concept of your research, because the faculty is truly there to support your ideas and help foster them in an appropriate and feasible manner. Staff would always mention how professors are there to help you, and I didn't truly realize it until I started researching people to help me with my capstone. My first suggestion would be that if you don't know where to start by asking around. I started off by emailing some of my previous professors in both chemistry and psychology courses and asking them if any of them knew anybody with any relative experience to scientific art. Whether it was scientific illustrations for textbooks or mathematic design, anything that could lead me to a similar direction to what I had in mind. And eventually I spoke to a professor, Dr. Levins, with whom I had done undergraduate psychology research the previous year. It turns out that she not only had completed a minor while she was an undergrad, but she found my idea fascinating, similar to a project that she had done during her time at university. Once she accepted to be my advisor for my honors research, I knew that I was going to have somebody to both help guide my objective, but also support your creativity along the way, which is extremely important. Creating the rest of my committee was relatively simple after that because I asked myself two major questions when establishing relationships with the faculty. One, what aspects of my project do I need assistance with? And two, who would be able to help me fill in those gaps? So my project incorporated a lot about mental health, and I now had somebody that would be able to help me with the psychological aspects of my project. I wanted to focus on the mechanisms of actions of certain medications, and so I asked my organic chemistry professor, Dr. Herger, to assist me with the chemical components of my research. Then finally, I knew that I didn't have the best literary skills, and so I wanted to ensure that I had someone who could make sure that I had followed the proper writing guidelines and would help me create a really solid literature review that would back up the rest of my research. And so I asked the honors librarian, Abby Moore, to serve as a reader. And since she and I had gone on the study abroad trip together, I had already established that relationship with her as a mentor. You can always start by asking people who you are familiar with, and hopefully you'll be guided towards somebody who has similar experiences to the type of project that you are working on. And that is how I established my research committee. So then I ended up completing my honors capstone in April of 2021. My project was titled A Portrait of Anxiety, an examination of anxiety disorders, psychoactive drug use, and stigma through artistic expression. It essentially covered three main topics of interest: the neurobiology of anxiety, including MRI imaging of abnormal brains, the pharmacology of Xanax, including the binding mechanism of benzodiazepines for the treatment of anxiety, and the stigma of mental health disorders, consisting of social and internalized stigmas associated with mental illness. I took all the information that I gathered from my research and presented it all through an art exhibit that essentially consisted of 6 painted models. Now, I don't have all of them still in my disposal, but I do have a few I can show you. So this included a 3D model of the structure of alprazolam, which I no longer have. I also had a self-portrait of what anxiety feels like and means to me. And so I do have that one. And so this was my representation of that. And there's a lot of symbolism in all of my paintings, which I did do a full description of as well. And then I also have a painting that, it's an unsettling painting that depicts the effects of stigma and an abstract representation of the function of anxiety. And then I also have a shadow box that talks a little bit about the stigmas of prescription medication use and also the misuse of medications, which is also important to mention. And then my final painting, which I do not have with me, it is currently hanging outside of Mrs. Lynch's room, in her office room, and so if you guys want to see it, you can see it there in Levine Hall. But that painting depicts the chemical processes of Xanax, as well as the effects of anxiety and the types of emotions that are associated with this disorder. The main research question that I focused on was how can visual arts reduce the stigma by portraying chemical and psychological processes of anxiety in alprazolam. And the overall main purpose of my research project was to educate others on the nature of anxiety and show how the treatment may be required just like any other medical condition, despite the stigmatization of mental disorders that is still present in our world. The honors program really gave me the opportunity to explore research in a new way, allowing me to present my ideas in a creative fashion, which might be more impactful to some than a speech or a paper would. I would consider myself very fortunate to have had these amazing professors to work alongside me to make this happen and bring light to my research questions. So my main suggestions for conducting honors research are as follows. Make sure you start early. You want to allow yourself as much time to navigate through your ideas and land on a cohesive question that you'll be able to handle in the time allotted. Having a committee early on in your research will allow you to communicate your thoughts and brainstorm amongst a variety of people with different experiences to help guide you. It's important to try to have an expert from each main element in your project, especially anything that you have limited experience with. As I had never studied art, I completed a series of interviews with a painting professor at UNCC to ensure that the artistic aspect was just as polished as my research portions. I was able to receive feedback on nearly every component of my project from different members of my committee, establishing connections between each element to make sure that my idea was cohesive and diverse. One of the main challenges that I faced during my research process was making sure that I could handle everything that I had taken on myself. I believe that this could be avoided by preparing for your research a bit earlier on, as I spent so much time trying to narrow down my idea that by that point I had lost some of the time I could have actually spent conducting my research or creating the art. I think that my project could have further been improved by making the questions more precise and allowing myself a better opportunity to complete everything I wanted to in the time that I had. I would definitely suggest beginning to coordinate your ideas as soon as possible and begin reaching out to people to discuss your ideas. I would also highly recommend pushing yourself outside of your boundaries to explore something new and exciting. I've said it once before that your experiences in honors and really in any aspect of life will be based on how much effort that you put into it. And so I encourage you to research something that you are truly passionate about, especially since you'll probably be involved with it for 2 full semesters, if you choose to follow the honors capstone, that is. If there is something you've been genuinely curious about your whole life, pursue that. Or if there is a topic in a course that you learned about but didn't get to explore as much as you would have liked to, maybe continue down that path. Or if you have an end goal in mind of helping a specific community or a specific issue that you would like to create a solution for, start by doing research within that field to find where the gaps are. You want to make sure that you're picking something that is both relevant and important, but also hasn't been done 100 times before. The originality of your research will help you connect with it more personally and find it more meaningful, since you may be the only one who has looked at this topic from that specific perspective before. So I've mentioned in the beginning that I was no longer planning on attending medical school, despite that having been my goal for nearly 7 years. And after my experiences working in a hospital and my changing personality, I essentially decided that becoming a doctor was no longer right for me. It took me almost a year to be okay with this career change and accept that I was not a failure, but rather found a new direction in my life. During my honors research, I looked a bit into medicinal plants that were used for the treatment of anxiety, and I also had some chemistry courses where I completed research on natural compounds that were used in medicine. And throughout all of my research experiences, I discovered this field called pharmacognosy, and it's essentially the study of medicinal plants for use in the pharmaceutical industry. In this field, you take natural products, extract their chemicals, and manipulate them for use in medicine with the potential to make groundbreaking changes in the field of medicine. So, because of my research and because of my honors experience, I was able to find my new direction in life and discovered a completely new field of science that I didn't necessarily knew existed before. And that is what exactly I loved and wanted to study. I recently completed my application to a program for a PhD in pharmaceutical science with a concentration in medicinal chemistry and pharmacognosy. So my honors research quite literally directly affected my career path and the type of education that I wanted to acquire. So I can't guarantee that honors research or any research is going to change your life, but I definitely know that if you put in the effort and allow yourself the opportunity to be open to new ideas and experiences, you will absolutely find something new to be passionate about and find excitement for learning that you can carry on with to any aspect of your life. I personally am very grateful for my honors research experience, and I encourage you all to make the best of the opportunity that you've been given and engage in research, whatever kind that may be. Thank you guys all for your time, and I've hoped to learn something valuable that you'll be able to take on to your own research projects and experiences to come. Thank you!